turn us on. Welcome to Dominate Your Day. Today I have a special guest with us, Becky Freemal. I love that name, Freemal, like a free mall. Becky told me that little anecdote as we were talking about her name. Becky is an award-winning storyteller, business founder, and she's a fractional chief marketing officer, which is like a growth marketing officer for a company. Becky, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited I'm all about dominating my day. I'm ready to do this. Let's do it.
Yes. Well, you're a busy entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of, especially women out there, that continue to try to do it all. And you've come from an amazing background. And I'd love for you to share the story of how you got where you are today, because I think there's going to be some people in our audience that are in corporate right now, or they might be at a university like you were, and they're trying to figure out how to make that move. And I would just love to share, for you to share that journey of that pivot that you took
Yeah.
as you launched out on your own.
To your point, as you said, I was in broadcast journalism for 25 years. And then around 2017, I got out and worked in marketing and communication for higher ed, for the corporate world, a bunch of different verticals. And, as time went on, I started to realize that there were so many more people I wanted to be able to help, but I couldn't within the constraints of working for somebody. I had to obviously follow the code of that company, so to speak. And by breaking out on my own, a couple different things. One, I can really help a multitude of different people. And if someone comes to me and says, hey, I need this thing, I know I can do it. I know I can help them uncover their story, and I can help them find their purpose so that they can find and connect with that right target audience. And, being a journalist for as long as I was, those evidence-based stories and that ability to connect with people isn't just reserved for humans and people to people. It's also there for companies and organizations to find that personification of their company and why they founded it in the first place. Because companies aren't these sterile entities. They're real people that are behind those brick and mortar or behind that website, that e-commerce site that can really connect. And that's something I love to do, is to connect people and to include and bring them all in. And I just can do that so much better as a fractional CMO. When someone comes and says, hey, I need your help, I'm like, I'm your girl. I got you.
So how did you go from broadcast journalism to saying, okay, I'm a fractional marketing executive that you can hire out, and I'll come in and work on your strategy and build your story and your purpose and your branding?
Yeah.
That was a big kind of
Jump.
how did that, a lot of people say, hey, I want to be in this area, but how did you make that leap?
That leap. So obviously, as you know, it wasn't overnight per se. There
Right.
were steps and journeys along the way, and the ability to really lean in. I am a highly motivated human being. And so that helps.
Mm-hmm.
So and being motivated helps when it comes to challenges, because that was one of the biggest reasons I left broadcast news, was because after 24 years, I thought, I don't feel like well, obviously it wasn't the day I left that I thought this, but the final few years, I felt like I wasn't really getting that challenge. I wasn't feeding my soul, so to speak. And in broadcast news, you're working your way up the ladder to the biggest markets. And as I was doing that, I was realizing that, sure, the audience was getting bigger, the markets were getting bigger, but I was still doing the same stories, the same things every fall, and I wasn't getting that challenge per se. And I really wanted to find something that was challenging. And so every time I have made a decision to leave one area and move into another, or to just, as I've evolved, I like to keep one foot strongly planted in an area I get and I know and I understand, while I put the other foot in an area that's a little bit new or a little bit shaky, so that I can learn something. And then eventually I can move that other foot into it. You know what I mean? And then I just kind of keep
Absolutely.
step laddering that way. So yeah, so that was the biggest thing. And then, I got crazy, but when I moved into out of broadcast journalism, I had lots of people who would have this comment like, oh, you're a storyteller. And Dana, I promise I didn't say this, but the vibe was, oh, that's cute. Like that was kind of the feel I got.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I don't know that the corporate world understands the importance of stories. Like, people hear storyteller then and they were like, whatever. Now they're like, oh, it's a cliche. And I'm like, okay, You can't win when you use the word storyteller. But there's a reason for stories, and there's a reason they've been around for tens of thousands of years. They are not going away in the digital space. They've been around since cave drawings, and they're going to be around long after we're here. And so I dove into the data. I'm like, all right, I'm all about numbers, people. You keep talking about data and flowcharts and trends. I got my MBA, for crying out loud. I was like, I leaned in. And when I kind of came out the other end of the MBA, that's when it hit me. I'm like, you know what? Data is important, but the corporate world is drastically missing the storytelling and the human element piece. And so that's where I've brought from my fractional CMO sense together, is that storytelling, but data-driven, evidence-based stories. Like I did in my journal some days, I just do it for corporations now.
And I think that's great. One of the things I want to bring up now, because I think this is pivotal in our lives as we make decisions, we know there's a yearning there, and a yearning is something that just won't go away, right? It's like, gosh, I got to go do that. Like you said, there was something I always want to learn and grow. Of course, we're always, the entrepreneur we are right now isn't going to be who we need to be 12 months from now, or the leader we are right now.
Yeah.
And so there's a yearning, and that comes from your unique talents. So I'd love for you to share with the audience. We talk a lot about CliftonStrengths on this show because it's a great tool to help people find their energy and find what they're good at and spend all their time there.
Yeah.
And then find other people that can do the things that they're not that good at.
Right.
Or that they don't get energy from.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned when you started as an entrepreneur, it was like, oh, I got to do everything. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I'd love for you to share with the audience your top 5 of your most recent strengths. So Becky took it twice. Is that right?
Yeah. I've taken
the assessment twice.
Yes. Different companies are like, no, we need to do it again. I'm like, okay, we'll do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I recommend people go ahead and just when you take it again, just put it in your regular personal email, so it's always there and you've always got it. But yeah, so Becky, to share with the audience what your top 5 strengths are.
So I'm cheating. I'm going to look over here because I have the list. It says your top 5 themes. Number 1, futuristic. 2nd, includer. 3rd, ideation. 4, positivity. And 5 is woo.
Okay, so let's talk about what was the yearning that you were having when you were in broadcast. And usually when we're in our other job before we launch on our own, there's this yearning that keeps happening, right? It just keeps burning. What do you think that was burning inside you that said, I need to go do this? Was it the storytelling? Was it helping the clients? What was it that came up?
Some of it was, this is kind of a funny story, but when I was in, not the broadcast side, but I was still working full time, and I was a chief marketing officer for a financial institution. And I just had that yearning, and I was like, I just want to go out on my own. I want to try the thing, and I was listening. I'm a avid NPR listener. And so I was listening to NPR on my way to work and just listening to the stories. And I happened to turn it on right in the middle of an interview. So I didn't even know the context of it. And the interviewer asked the woman who she was interviewing, I imagine when you were growing up in they owned a hospice, in this hospice family business, that you had some really sad dinner conversations. And the woman said, actually, quite the opposite. After 30 years of living in this hospice family business, I learned a lot growing up in it. And the biggest takeaway from all of these people and their final moments of life was they wish they did the thing. And I literally looked out my windshield up to the heavens, up to the sky, and just was like, okay, I get it. I'll do it. Like, because I really wanted to move out on my own and just see what it was like. And it's serendipity, I guess, that I heard that interview right at that moment, because then I pulled into work. I wasn't that, I wasn't in the car that long.
Wow.
And so I don't know that I knew I had that yearning per se. I don't know if I knew until I heard that I was like, oh no, I might die with this concern of, oh, I didn't do the thing. But that was that moment where I heard it, and I'm like, you know what, the they in the world, or the stars, whatever, have aligned to tell me, just stop being so scared. And that's what it is. I think fear keeps people from doing things. And I don't want to go through life scared. I want to try the thing.
Yeah, it was funny. I was just writing about this morning. I think so many times there's a metaphor of a little girl trying to ski, right? And she's scared to go down the mountain. And this is on YouTube, a little video, and she's spends 5 minutes talking to her parents about, I can't, everything that could go wrong. And then she goes, here I go. And she goes down and she's, whoa, that was great. And the whole idea is that we spend more time, focus on what could go wrong instead of what could go right.
Yes.
And I love the fact that you took the moment to just really say, because, usually this has been churning in our brain and not just that one event. It was
Right.
probably several things leading up to that went, there's somebody else inside of me I need to get out.
Yes.
And that is what I love talking about at this intersection of strengths and branding is, who is that authentic Becky?
Right.
And how did you find her?
Right.
And it sounded like you did some testing, kind of like going out and working with some clients, kind of testing it out before you kind of launched full time doing this. Is that what
Yeah,
you did?
I did a little bit. I'm going to tell you something that's really, I think, crazy. And I know I didn't realize it at the time. But when you talk about branding and who you are authentically, I will tell you my story went all the way back to high school. And when things happen that are quite challenging, you don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily see it at the time, but they're pointing you to the direction you're supposed to go. And I was 16. I was right before my junior year in high school. I played soccer my whole life. If you would have asked me who I was, who is Becky? What is her brand? I would have told you I'm a soccer player. I'm an athlete. That's who I am. That's what I'm all about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say that I'm not still. That team approach to life, because I grew up in that, is exactly how I
Mm-hmm.
now operate as a fractional
Awesome.
CMO, as a mom, whatever. But I got cut from the team junior year, and Dana, I was devastated. Devastated. It was horrible. And a couple things happened that really formed who I am and where I ended up. One, my mom and dad gave me the space to be sad for about a day or two. And then they were like, at dinner one night, they're like, okay, what else are you going to do? Like, we're not going to sit here and wallow in self-pity.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many other things that you can try out. So I did theater, and wildly different than soccer. And
Oh, wow.
I know this is a big surprise, but I was a nervous wreck to stand in front of people and talk. And so I was like, oh my gosh, no way. I wouldn't even do the running crew when I was on the backside of some of the theater shows, because you had to run out on stage to change the set and people would see me. And so I did lighting because I could stay tucked behind backstage. That's how scared I was about
Wow.
going on air. Anyway, or not on air, but on stage. Anyway, so I tried out. I got one line. And my line was, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous, I'm going to puke," because I was trying out for it was Fame, the play.
Oh, yeah.
I was acting as if I was trying out for a play, so I didn't have to act at all.
That's awesome.
Isn't it? But that was my pivot point. Had I not gotten cut, I would have not gotten into theater, which is what brought me into communication as a college student. And that's what got me into broadcast journalism. I mean, who would have ever thunk at 16 that morning? I will never forget sitting on that asphalt in the parking lot behind the school and them calling out the numbers and not hearing my number and thinking, I can't believe I just got cut. And at that moment, it evolving all the way through life to where I am now. So things happen when you least expect it. And I don't know. Life is an interesting journey.
But it's kind of like I had somebody had me do that once where you write all the things that pivots you've made in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see how God really brought good out of it. And like you're just describing in the story. And so what I want the audience to think about now is when you have those pivot moments and you look back and think of if you kept doing soccer, you would have probably never gotten into broadcast
Right.
journalism, which have never gotten you this. But when I look at your strengths, I'm going to circle back to that. There's that woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, the woo was probably great because you're with your team and you're part of positive and it was great. And I think people that are in team sports make great leaders. I think there's just so much around that whole piece. But I love how your strengths really played into this new role that you got.
Yeah.
And now here we are into entering another chapter
Right.
of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So how are you managing that? How are you pivoting there? And what have you learned in this process as an entrepreneur?
I think the biggest thing that I am learning is to not come from a place of scarcity or being afraid, but instead coming at it with a prosperous mindset. And trust me, I did not come up with that on my own. I've talked to a lot of friends, a lot of entrepreneurs, coaches like yourself. And as I spoke through the why nots, they were, they
Hmm.
started to turn to, well, yeah, why not? Not like, oh, this is why I'm not
Hmm.
doing it, but why wouldn't I do this? And so, and it was always because and a lot of us do, we come from a place of fear, and that's how we're wired. I mean, that's how we survived on the
Hmm.
Serengeti or wherever millions and millions
Yes.
of years ago or whatever, and so, evolution physically does not keep up with the way the world is. And so we do tend to go right to all the fear, the scarcity, how we can't get through. And
Hmm.
instead I'm like, I, I'm going to be just fine. Stop operating from a place of fear. Start operating from a
Hmm.
place of motivation and where it can take me. So that helps.
And I hear your positivity there.
Yeah,
So that's what's so neat about using your strengths every day is when you're feeling a little drained, it's like, oh, I've got to get this done. Which one am I going to use? And with your mindset, that mindset work that I think is the key for everything,
oh yeah.
especially for entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
is, oh gosh, I've got to go do all these things today. And some of them I'm not that gifted in, but I'm going to do them anyway, is using your positivity for that and
Yeah.
trying to get to that next level. So let's talk about some things that maybe you were afraid to do, but you did after you started working on your own. It sounds like you've got a book out.
I do.
Can you tell the audience about how you created that book and what your journey to get there was and where it's been thus far?
I don't know if it's just, LinkedIn, like their algorithm, but before I ever thought about writing a book, I was getting hit up on LinkedIn by people saying, "Hey, I own a book publishing company, or I'm an editor,
Hmm.
and hey, I can help you write a book." And I thought, where are these people coming from? But second of all, I kind of am glad they came from wherever they came from, because I thought, I don't think I even knew this was a thing. I didn't even know that was a business. Like, I'm going to start a book writing
Hmm.
business. Some may call it a publisher, but I like to really break it down.
Yes,
So I,
sure. Yeah.
so I thought, I don't know. I guess I got you have to hear something a million times. They say seven specifically, till you
Yeah.
do the thing. And so I don't know how many times I heard it, but I heard it enough that finally someone reached out, and I'm like, sure, I'll take the call. So he did a group free consultation call for an hour, and it intrigued me. I didn't sign on with them, but it intrigued me. And then when I broke out onto my own as an entrepreneur, and I had quite a few people who just needed quick pieces of advice. And I am the other thing that when you do all of these different evaluations like Strengths Finders, the one thing that rises to the top a lot for me is altruism, which, as
Hmm.
you know, every trait has a pro and a con. And so
Hmm.
to say I'm very altruistic, some might be like, okay, shut up, Freemal, you're not running for Miss America. However, I will
Hmm.
tell you, it has a con to it, which is I love to help people, and I'm willing to do it a lot of times at my own expense. Like, yes, I'll do it for free, or yes, I'll take the time to find how to do the thing and help you find how to do the thing. And I don't know, the book thing came up in the midst of all that. And I thought, wait a minute, if I write a book, I can continually help and consistently help people, but without me constantly taking my time out of my day hours, an hour here, a half hour there, Zoom call
Hmm.
here, Google Meet there. It's working. You write a book, you don't know how it's going to land. But I have gotten great responses from people who have shared that they've like underlined and written notes, like in the margins, like up the side of the page. And I love hearing that it's actually almost, it's not a workbook, but it almost is acting like a workbook for people. So there's inspirational stories. I talk about that soccer story in there, and about making sure you lean into the scarcity and why do you have that feeling, and to try and move past it, and how it's helped me. But then just tangible takeaways, like, this is how you build a brand. This is how you build a brand voice. This is how you put marketing strategy together. And so I think it's helping people who maybe couldn't afford a fractional CMO. And that makes me feel good, that altruistic side.
Yeah. So altruistic, that's coming from your includer.
Is that what it is? I gotcha.
Hmm.
Okay.
It's number two for you.
Oh, yeah,
So
it is.
just know we don't want to turn those down. These are like knobs you're turning up and down.
Yeah.
But there's a side of you that, each of these have a balcony, something that's great for us or a help, and then each of them have a hindrance. So
Yeah.
it can go in its hindrance when everybody's included, right?
Yeah.
But then when it needs everybody, the inclusion, you've got it. It's just a natural talent.
Yeah.
So I love, so what mindset shift did you have to make to fully step into your authentic self and write that book?
I don't know. I feel like for me, in a way, it would. Hmm. I think just letting myself know I could step away from my business for a second and write it. And that quote unquote stepping away from my business did not mean it was not going to continue and I wasn't going to continue to serve my clients, but that there was not the scarcity of time that I had in my brain. And that if you
Mm,
take the time to do the things you love, I tell my clients this all the time. What is your purpose? Why did you found this company? What is, and if you didn't, if it's a financial institution that's been around forever, why did you decide to lead it? There has to be some purpose
mhm,
connection in there. And for me, my purpose are people and connecting them. And this book can do that.
mm,
And so that really is what I think kind of was the mind shift, is to stop operating from the scarcity mindset and start operating from that more, prosperous. Hey, I've got time. I've got the ability. And why hide it? That's the other thing. Like when I
mhm.
think about this book, when I even think about going on a sales pitch, like I'm not a big hardcore salesperson. I'm more of a
Right.
relationship builder. And so I'm not going to be like, hey, big guy, I like your tie. You need marketing and I'm your girl. Like, ugh,
Yeah.
that's not my thing. But
Mhm.
when I flip that narrative in my head and I'm like, it doesn't have to be some slick sales pitch.
No.
You have knowledge in your brain that is going to help the person standing in front of you. Stop hoarding it to yourself, and then that's when it helps me get out of that mindset.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to someone who's struggling right now to align their life with their authentic self? Whether it's one of your clients that's running a business right now, pretty successful growth business and high growth, or somebody that's just getting started that's just buying your book. What advice would you give them if they're struggling to figure out what they're, how do they align who they are with their authentic self? Because so many people are comparing and living what they think they should be. Like, remember that vision you had in yourself that I'm supposed to be a soccer
Yeah.
player?
Yeah.
Um, so, what would be your advice that you give? Whether you can pick, one of your clients that you've been working with, or maybe somebody that has been reading your book.
You know, honestly, a lot of it is digging deep within. And it goes back to really the work that you do, Dana, which is
Hmm.
really finding what brings you energy each day. What is it that you
Hmm.
really truly love day in and day out? And when you hit on those moments of purpose, because you just get
Hmm.
that hop in your step, or you just get that. I mean, and I get it. Not everyone's purpose is going to
Hmm.
bring in tons of cash. Or honestly, I
Right.
think it could if you really lean into it, but maybe not right away. So you got to come up with a tangible plan on how is it going to work. What are the things that you can do to bring in income now? Maybe it's knowing that you're not where you want to be as a full-time employee for somebody else, and start weaving in, or folding into the mix some evening
Hmm.
work with clients that you can help in the
Hmm.
evenings or whenever you work outside of your work day, if it's evening, night,
Hmm.
whatever. But if you work the 8 to 5 job, maybe you bring in a client for, that you can work with on evenings or weekends or something like that. And because you also, sometimes you might try something on and find out you don't like it. And in a very,
Yeah.
very simplistic way, I tell people, I used to do this when I was younger. I would be at the mall and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I love that sweater. I love that outfit. I really want it, but I don't have the money for it. And I started to realize somewhere in that process when I was trying some of these items on, that when I put them on my body, I was like, ew, I don't even like it. So now
Yeah.
and so I did that in a very simplistic way then, which was, I tried on the sweater for the very fact that I was like, oh, I'm going to try this on because I'm not going to like the way it looks. And then I won't leave the mall yearning for that sweater that I couldn't afford because it doesn't look good on me anyway, or I don't like the way it fits.
Hmm.
And so, no different now in life is just taking that um, idea you have it and try it on before you
Hmm.
dive all in. You know what I mean? You don't have to quit your
Hmm.
job and full on do it. You can do it on the side, try it on. You might be like, I kind of like that, but I need to evolve it. I need to ebb and flow. So yeah, I mean, because we live in a capitalistic nation. At the end of the day, we got to make money. We got to pay the mortgage, got to pay
Yeah.
the rent. Um, so I mean, but that doesn't mean that you can't follow your dreams. I don't believe that those are in conflict with one another. It just takes a
Yeah.
lot of trial and error sometimes.
Absolutely. And I think just knowing that um, people want to feel like they're bringing value and they're doing meaningful work.
Yes.
And so it doesn't feel you're going to get paid no matter what when you're in that authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
because you know it in your gut and your clients know it, and everybody, everything's kind of just smooth. I mean, there's going to be challenges, but things feel easy
Yes.
because you're in those strings.
Yeah. Yeah. And people feel your passion.
Yeah.
If you're energized, and as a marketer at least and communicator, if I'm energized about helping you with your company, it just naturally energizes you. And it's because I found
Hmm.
my purpose and now I want to share it. And then it's contagious in a very good way.
Did you find that? I know you took your strengths at a university and you also took them at another organization. Did you ever find at that moment in time that you were able to apply them to your role as you transformed, or was it just one of those other assessments you kind of put in the drawer and said, yeah, okay, that's who I am, and okay. How have you found using those assessments as you've been building your own business?
I think they help me become very intentional and deliberate. You know, when someone says, "Oh, Becky, you have woo," or "You're an ideator," you know, or futuristic, or especially the includer, that has been something I've known about myself since day one. I don't necessarily look at them and say, "Oh, I had no idea." I feel like, at least for me, my self awareness was there that when I got them, the results never surprised me. But for me,
Hmm.
Becky Freemal, the results help keep me on track. Like, Becky, do not forget who you are. So it almost is a way to get out. Like, I'm looking at them right now on my upper screen here, and they're looking back at me, almost
Hmm.
like another entity. Like, hey, Becky, don't forget. You know,
Hmm.
like, so when you get,
Yeah.
because we get busy in life, and as an entrepreneur, you are doing everything. And the other day, I was doing my profit and loss statement, and let's be real, QuickBooks did it for me. I didn't do
Yeah.
it.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, those are not things that bring me joy or fill my cup at all, but they're things I have to do. And so you have to do you that's another piece of advice. You just have to do things you don't like sometimes to get to the end
Hmm.
result, because futuristic, I do. I look up ahead at the vision. Where is it that you want to go? And what's going to get you there? And those little steps along the way are so important. And some of them you're not going to like, but you got to do it. You know what I mean? You just got to lean into the ugh. But yeah, so
Yeah.
intentional and deliberate are something I'm trying to be very, I think we all are always trying to be those things. And I think CliftonStrengths helps you with that.
And we're in a new year right now.
Yeah.
And I think there's this, what do they say? People do all these, New Year's resolutions,
Yeah.
and then it's goals, and then it's this. And then by January 16th, they've fallen off the track.
Yeah.
It's everybody's at the gym today and tomorrow and next week, and then boom. And so, what do you do? I know you've got futuristic and I know you've got ideation. What do you do to manage Becky and Becky's business so that she stays on track with where you want to go? Do you start thinking about 2025? When did you start thinking about 2025?
You know, I kind of, to my futuristic point, I always am thinking about the future. I don't know that there's
Yeah.
ever a day that I'm not. Um,
Hmm.
but when it comes to that intentional and deliberate aspect of it, I would say, just like everyone else in the last few months, like where I actually
Yeah.
sit down. I have a really good friend who's a fractional chief operating officer, and she got me on this habit last year. So it's the only second year I've done it, but I love it. I write myself a postcard. I will not take her, I will not act
Hmm.
like this is my idea, but
Yeah.
I write a postcard as I head into the year, as if it's a year later, and I'm telling myself what all happened in that year.
Mm.
And so I do that, and I always start it in a very positive way. Like this year, I think I started it with, "Hey, Freemal, you absolutely crushed it, and this is what you did." And then I tell myself what I did, and then also what are the steps I took to do that. So you can break down like the path, so that
Hmm.
I know right now what's my next best step, so that I can get to
Hmm.
that end goal. So I wrote my postcard, and then I also take those and I put them into a Google sheet, and I'll just start um, putting the numerics on it, because sometimes
Hmm.
something as simple as, hey, how much do you want to make next year? Okay, I want to make X amount. Okay, instead of, oh, I want X clients and I want to be successful, start with the end goal of how much do you want to make, and then back into how many clients you need to
Hmm.
get there. So yeah, so those are some of the things I've done in the final quarter of 2024 to get me to 2025. And also, I think people get locked into it. They're like, oh, this is what I wrote. Okay, it's officially 2025 now, and I'm still making tweaks to it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to change this. I'm going to fix that.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't think there's anything wrong with writing it, planning it out, but visiting it on a regular basis. And like you said, because the goals aren't going to change, but maybe the strategies underneath them will change because of the market or something.
yeah,
It's like, who knew, 2 years ago we were going to be using AI and all the things that we're using AI as entrepreneurs now. And so that has helped so many entrepreneurs like myself just go quicker.
Yes,
Um, and
exactly.
so, but then how to use it correctly and all the things that come with that and all the learning and all that. But I love the fact that you've written yourself a postcard. Do you write it in third person or first person?
I usually write it in, gosh, I'm looking at it right now. I wanted to see. I think I write it in like to myself, like second. So it'd be, in fact, I start it with Freemal. You are doing the
Uh,
thing. Let's say it
I love
again. You
that.
are doing it. So second person, I guess.
Second person. I love that. Well, and you love writing and you're a writer. So I think that's fun. And you also have futuristic. What would be your advice to those people that don't have futuristic and they don't enjoy writing, but they need to do something to motivate themselves
You know,
to get that?
something I do that's more present, like in the moment, because so as you can imagine, futuristic is everything has a pro and a con.
Yeah.
Futuristic is great. I need to get better at being present. And that's
Yeah.
when I did this CliftonStrengths Finders thing, it was through an exercise at a equine center. And so we had horses, and that's how
Oh,
it
yeah.
was really cool. Anyway, my group, we each had no one knew the other person. We'd all just met. And so we each got a little note card from the person who was heading up the exercise is the word I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a horse in front of us that we had to groom, and we had to do the thing. And we each had one task. And my one task was, it said on my little card, only do things that help right now. Don't think of or speak of anything in the future. Be present in the moment. What will
Mm.
help at this second? I had the
Mm.
hardest time trying to figure out what to do right now without seeing where I was headed. Like I always look at where I'm going and then build the path that way. And so I'm like, oh my God, I can't think at all about the future. He's like, nope. Um, so,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that's bad. I mean, I'm very proud of being futuristic. I'm proud of who I am, but I also
Mm-hmm.
know where my shortcomings are. And being present in
Mm-hmm.
the moment is something that we all talk a lot about in this world. And I always am trying to get better at. But for someone who is good at that, one of the things I do to try and get more toward them is I do kind of, it's kind of a cliche, and I know you've heard of it and everyone else is probably, but I do the stop, start, continue. You know, people always
Mm-hmm.
talk about, what do you stop? What do you start? What do you continue? So before I even wrote my postcard, I just thought about, like, right here now, what do I need to continue doing? What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? And I think that's a very good, tangible next best step for a lot of people. Just get your brain going, because then you're
Yeah.
writing. Even though you say you don't like writing and you're not writing, as you're writing your stop, start, and continue list,
Mm-hmm.
you're writing.
That's right. And then it's just taking action, right? It's just,
Yes.
and I hear you. I have ideation. I also have futuristic. And I created the strengths journal, which helps you daily set an intention, daily put your top three things, put what strengths you're going to use and get them done because I needed a lattice, just like a wine vineyard and a wine plant needs to hold on to something to
Hmm.
keep structure.
Yeah.
I needed that structure, and it's helped me stay structured. Um, because I know that's the one thing it's like when you know, oh gosh, my ideation, my futuristic is going to get in the way if I don't put it into a structure.
Yes.
So that's one way that I've had to kind of train myself to be more in the future and more in the present. But you're right. But I love that you have a role as an entrepreneur right now, creating visions for people and creating strategic plans for them because that gives you energy to help them lay it all out with your futuristic and your ideation. So
Yeah,
it probably feels really good.
it does.
What
It does.
as we get ready to close out, as the challenges, I know we've been talking about all the good stuff of being an entrepreneur. Any challenges that you have found as an entrepreneur that you've had to overcome and just anything that you would share as advice for people who are kind of tipping their toe into entrepreneurship and what you're doing.
I think for me, so first, again, you have to do things you don't like. You know, if you don't like accounting, you're going to have to at least touch upon it. Also,
Yeah.
a good piece of advice is if you don't like something and you're not good at it, delegate it. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, the Small Business Development Center, SBDC, they're all over the United
Mhm.
States. I used our Roanoke, I'm in Southwest Virginia. And so Roanoke, Virginia is nearby, and I used their SBDC office. And um, the guy with them, his name's Tom Tanner. He's a godsend, and he understands accounting. And SBDC is free. It's a government funded
It's great.
program to help small business and entrepreneurs, get up on their feet. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, yes, you have to lean into some things you don't like and do the thing that you're not always dying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But just make sure it's all back to futuristic. It all is pointing to that bigger
Mm-hmm.
thing that you do want to do. Like, make sure any of the
Mm-hmm.
things you're doing, good or bad, that you enjoy or don't enjoy, are still pointing the needle toward that end goal that you've had for yourself. That's, I think, the biggest thing. And just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I think that is just great advice. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience? Could be about your book or about just what we've talked about today that's coming up for you right now that we haven't gotten to talk about.
Yeah. So my book just launched in Brand Voice, People Plus Data Drive Results, launched in July. And so I am taking it on the road now in 2025 and doing keynotes
Yay.
and emceeing events and really leaning into that aspect of my business. And, it's super, again, it's helpful. I'm always trying to find ways, because when you're a keynote or you're an MC, you don't cost nearly as much as you would as a month over month retainer as a fractional CMO. And so it's just one
Hmm.
more tool in my toolbox to try and help people, because they might not have that monthly retainer income, but they're like, hey, but we can bring Becky in to help our current marketing team and get them up and running and help them with the strategy session
Hmm.
and give them that roadmap and that guide, so that when I step out, they can do the thing successfully. I mean, it's, they always say that, gosh, I am going to share this with you, Dana. This is my favorite thing. It says
Okay.
leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. And I
Ooh.
love that, because what I was getting at is, I'll go in, I can do a half day session or keynote, but at the end of the day, I didn't do a good job, or I know I did do a good job if I can leave and they continue that work. They don't need me there
Yeah.
holding their hands, so to speak.
I love how throughout this conversation you've talked, Becky, about bringing value to the people that you wanted to serve, but they couldn't afford a
Mm-hmm.
fractional owner. So through your book, through your speaking, and being able to connect with them and bring value
Mm-hmm.
while still serving your target market
Yes.
of the growing entrepreneur.
Yes.
And I love that, because at some point they're going to be in your journey, your customer journey,
Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah. You're
starting
right.
here
Yes.
and you're going to bring them all the way along. And I'm excited for you to see how this progresses and
Thank you.
to see your book. And when you lit up, when you talked about, I get to go on the road and
Yeah.
speak. And if somebody didn't have woo or high communication, they probably would be going, oh my gosh, I've got to go speak at all these places. But for you, it's like, woo.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you. I
You're
love
living
it.
in your strengths,
Yes, I do. I
which
love
is
it.
really great. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, sharing how you got to your authentic brand voice and your brand self, and writing the book Brand Voice. Tell our followers how they can find you.
Sure. So my website is very simple. It is my name, BeckyFreemal.com. And I also have a free gift for anyone in the marketing realm. It's just BeckyFreemal.com/free gift. And that's part of my book. If you buy my book and you open it up, there's like a QR code for a free gift, and it'll take you to that page as well. And it's just helping people, again, who might want to try and get a taste of what marketing strategy is for their own company and how to start the process. And they can either take the book or the free gift and lightly go down that path. Or if they really want to dive in, then obviously they can bring me on as their fractional CMO.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm excited, Becky, to see your journey in 2025 as you continue growing and becoming the authentic Becky every day. And thank you for being here, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you. It was great, great, great to meet you, and happy 25 to you and all the listeners.
Thank you.